pixel people pod. Sends out up inside. Rewind the future fraud. The pixel people pod.
Hello, welcome back to another episode this week. Well, first, introduce everybody. Say hello, Jan.
Hello, Jan.
Who's on the phone?
Hey, what's going on? I just got off the main street. It's your ice cream man, Chris.
Oh, yeah, nice.
I'm giving you fair warning. No lame jokes tonight.
Let's keep it all
I'll
in
wait.
balance. Let's keep it all in balance. I'll wait. That was a good one. Dang, I talked over you. That was a good one. All right. This week's is on the split that rocked music in the mid-'80s. The Van Halen split when Roth left and Hagar came in. There's a reason for that, and we'll tell it to you when we get to it, right after Jan's Gnarly News.
Here we go. Jan's Gnarly News. Jan's Gnarly News.
Hit us with that news, Jan.
All right, here's your March 23rd, 1980-something Jan's Gnarly News. March 23rd, 1980, Journey released Departure. That was their first album to reach the top 10 on the Billboard chart. It peaked at number 8.
What were the big songs on that one?
Any Way You Want It and Walks Like a Lady.
Yeah.
Both reached top 40.
That was still a little bit of a rocking stuff with Steve Perry.
Yep.
Before they went all ballad. I bet you, I have to look and see if Jonathan Cain was on that one. Because he's the one that co-wrote all like the big hits. So I bet you he didn't come on that album until it was the next album. I have to look.
That album was certified 3 times platinum.
Chris, are you a big
How many?
Journey fan?
3 times.
I do like Journey. I never listened to him after Perry left, though, so I don't know how the new guy does. I don't know anything about him.
He does great, but I don't think they've put a record out with him. They're one of them weird bands that, you know, and everything died off in the 90s, which actually Van Halen was one of them too, which we'll get to, but they put a record out. Perry came back. I guess he left in the late 80s or like early 90s, but he came back in like 98 and they put a record out with him and it went platinum. There was still a market for Journey with Steve Perry. And then he wouldn't tour though. He just don't want to tour.
I saw a cover band with them at a place in Hickory, and that was really good. But then they're going to be in Charlotte at Spectrum Center in May. And if I can get tickets cheap enough, I may go to that. I'm not sure yet, but it probably.
Who's with him on that one?
I think it's just them. I don't know.
Oh, that's
All
right.
I saw was them.
It is. You're right. They're going to just do an extra long show.
Yeah.
Which I saw them in 98 or 99, but I'm not a big enough fan to sit through 3 hours of them. I would be a big enough fan to sit through an hour and a half maybe of just the hits. But them going into the deep cuts and stuff.
You know, you can get up and leave anytime you want.
Yeah, but you're going to miss. Yeah, but they're going to back in those hits.
March 23rd, 1982, Rick Springfield's 5th album, Success Hasn't Spoiled Me Yet, was released.
Don't Talk to Strangers, which is actually one of my favorite Rick Springfield songs. And What Kind of Fool Am I? And I Get Excited were singles from that album. So that's why it went number 2. He could do no wrong back then, you know? And I just looked at it, and the cover of this album has the dog on it from the other one.
It went number 2 probably just because of his name.
Yeah, back then, if you had a name like that, you could put out albums that were decent and still stay near the top. But you put a stinker out, and people forget you.
All right, I'm anxious to see if you guys watch this.
Okay.
Oh, I'm ready.
March 23rd, 1982, Joni Loves Chachi premiered on ABC.
Yes, I did. I watched that.
Yeah.
Who
I like
did-
Charles in Charge better, but still, Johnny Loves Chachi was
Who didn't
carry
watch
over from
Joni
Happy
Loves
Days,
Chachi
so.
back then? I mean, everybody loved Happy Days, so you just going to watch any spinoff, but it didn't last long. It bombed, didn't it?
Yeah, they had how many spinoffs of that show, Happy Days? What, 4 or 5 shows got spun off from
They
there?
had Mork and
You had
Mindy.
Mork and Mindy.
Joni Loves Chachi. I don't know what the other ones were.
They had a couple from that one show spinoff. So,
But I know that Mork and Mindy's the big one. So, which I remember looking back now on reruns, and it was like that Dukes Hazzard episode where the alien shows up. When Mork shows up on, Happy Days is kind of believable. Then they start having Mork show up. It's like, come on now.
Was Laverne and Shirley considered a spinoff?
I don't know. We should ask Siri.
well, they're in the same city, right? Same state, at least.
Yeah. Hey Siri, what shows were spinoffs of Happy Days? I didn't ask it right. You get me confused. We got a Google thing at the house, and you ask it a question, you have to ask it different than Siri.
What spinoffs were from Happy Days?
Happy Days
Laverne and
spawned several
Shirley,
spin-offs,
Mork and Mindy.
including Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, Blansky's Beauties, Out of the Blue, and Joanne Loves.
Joannie
Joannie.
Mushroom. Out of the blue, some of those I've never heard of.
And the Fawns and the Happy Days Gang.
Are you
Cartoon.
that's a cartoon, yeah. So,
Yeah, that's a spinoff.
And I'll tell you something that's funny. Tubi just added and I guarantee you that cartoon's on there. Tubi added 300 cartoons a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I
and
saw they were doing that.
One of them was the Dukes of Hazzard. It's just called
Oh.
the Dukes. But
I need to look.
the first season of it aired when Coy and Vance were on there. So the first season of the cartoon, the Dukes, are Coy and Vance. And then it actually had a second season, but Coy and Vance were gone, and there was Bo and Luke. But none of the cast members voiced the voices. It was all voice actors. So
Is Tennessee Tuxedo on there?
yeah,
I
just
gotta
watch
watch
that
it,
not
yeah.
that long ago. So,
I love Tennessee Tuxedo.
yeah, all right.
Released March 23rd, 1983, ZZ Top's Eliminator. It was their 8th studio album.
I'll not repeat this, but on the previous podcast, I talked about my experience playing a ZZ Top song with a drunk lady standing next to a camcorder screaming, "Play Eliminator!"
That was his groupies right there back in the
Yep.
day.
Yep.
That was I'll do a whole podcast just on that gig.
That album had 4 hit singles, Gimme All Your Lovin', Sharp Dressed Man, TV Dinners, and the most successful, Legs.
Great videos, great songs, great group.
They totally
For a
changed their
three-piece
sound.
band.
Yeah. But they totally changed their sound for that album. Went all electronic, and they used a drum machine. Frank Beard didn't play on it. It was all drum machines, programmed drum machines. And then Afterburner, I had that one. It was good too.
They had an album, I think, called Recycler or
Yeah,
something along
yeah.
the name of that. A friend of mine went to that tour, and he said they were on stage playing, and then this big dumpster-looking thing came out, and they stepped inside of it and recycled. And when they came back out, they were dressed in different outfits and stuff like
yeah,
that.
that's cool.
So
Yeah, they
recycled.
definitely put on
Yeah.
a show live. Yeah. They had the
Yeah.
little treadmill on the stage. When I saw them, they'd walk on it in place, and have their furry guitars they'd spin and everything. Billy Gibbons knew what to do to put on a show. So,
We should do a podcast on best 3-band groups ever.
yeah.
Rush would be up there, right?
Yeah, they would, whether you like them or not. We could eventually start doing podcasts on a band. I talked about that, Jan, the other day, just cover a band, tell the history of some that were big in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Because I
Like
said when we
today?
do Madonna, we
Yes.
can't really do a Madonna album because, she had so many hits spread out. We should just do one on Madonna and how big she was in the 80s.
He's saying that because over the weekend I made him watch Desperately Seeking Susan.
Yeah. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Yes, it is.
She's not in it, but maybe 30% of it.
Isn't that, it wasn't Sean Penn in that?
No.
That's where they met during that movie or something along
I don't
that line.
know,
They were
but-
married during that time.
But that movie was nothing like I thought it was. I thought it was all Madonna, and then we start watching it, and it's basically Patricia or Rosanna Arquette carrying the whole movie.
It's not a bad movie.
No, it's not. It's not. I thought it'd be bad. It was watchable.
I've always liked it.
I did see though they put it in the Library of Congress for something as it's culture worthy, and I'm like, I don't know if this movie is worth putting in the Library of Congress, but whatever.
The clothing in the movie and
Yeah, I guess.
the music in the movie
Yeah.
was very 80s. All right, March 23rd, 1983, the final episode of Seven Brides for Seven Brothers aired.
That was a TV show?
Yeah.
It came
I
from
thought that was a movie.
It came from a 1954 movie, but there was a
Oh.
TV show.
I remember having to watch that movie when I was a kid. My mom watched it.
I remember
watching it.
I remember the name, but I don't remember the movie or TV show. But
Some of the brothers were Richard Dean Anderson, Peter Horton, Roger Wilson, Tim Topper, and River Phoenix.
really?
River Phoenix.
Wow.
Yeah, he was
I tell
pretty
you what, if
young
they
in that.
redid that movie today, it'd be an adult version, I bet you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Greg, you're gonna like this next one.
Okay.
March 23rd, 1984, Police Academy was released.
Oh, I love that. That's going to be one of our movie reviews for sure.
Did you like that one as much as Greg did, Chris?
Oh, yeah, that's a great movie. The first couple were good, then
The first
never
four
saw
were
them
great.
After 3 or 4.
How
I
many
never
are
saw
there?
any of them after that.
There's
so.
7, but there's 4 that were great, and then the 5th one is they take Miami or whatever, which has some new people they're introducing in there, and then after that they were I think made for TV. But the first one's great. It was a straight up comedy. The second one is the one where Bobcat Goldthwait's in it, and he's a criminal, and they're trying to get him. It starts to get a little slapsticky, and then the third one is Citizens on Patrol, where Bobcat and them become cops, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I remember that one. So I've seen 3 of them.
No, that's 4 is Citizens on Patrol. Anyway, they're great. The first 4 I love, but they get campier every episode. But I love those.
I can only remember seeing 2 of them.
Yeah,
We were teenagers. Of course, we like dumb comedies.
Yeah, we'll do a marathon of the Police Academy movies in Jan.
I would like that more than a marathon of Star Wars.
Okay. Hey,
I'm
not going to argue with you. I like them both.
All right, March 23rd, 1985, Billy Joel and Christy Brinkley were married.
That was his Uptown Girl.
Yeah.
It was. She was in that video
Yeah.
in 83. The singer, songwriter, and musician and the supermodel divorced in 1994.
94?
94.
Wow.
Had a good run.
I thought they lasted longer than that, though.
9 years.
Yeah, I guess that's good
like 25 in human years.
yeah, that's like that's a long run for a celebrity couple, I guess. So can't knock it.
March 23rd, 1987, Eric Clapton released the single "It's in the Way That You Use It"
What a great song.
That's one of the songs
from his album August.
I can tolerate by him, a solo song.
I didn't realize that song was written
his
for the
stuff.
movie The Color of Money,
Yep, that was a good movie, too.
Scorsese movie.
Chris, I liked his stuff when he was in Cream and stuff like that. Then he went wussy. I like Clapton, the Clapton is God guitar Clapton. It's like he went mushy pop for a long time. Although Let It Rain is one of my favorite songs ever.
I mean, for him, like, he had such a great career, and then he had, like, a,
The Renaissance in the 90s.
yeah, with Unplugged and Tears
Yeah.
in Heaven.
Yeah.
I mean, that song just tears you apart
But-
if you know the backstory.
Yeah, but I watched a clip just the other day. It was a meme on Facebook. I don't know if I sent it to you. I need to send it and show it. It's some girl. She's on a bridge, and her name's Layla, and she's climbing through the bridge. Well, there's a hole in the bridge, and she was showing her boyfriend somebody how she can hang on the bridge, and he keeps going, Layla, and then she is hanging. Watch how I can do. Then she slips, and obviously she falls off the bridge. But she hear a guy go, Layla, and then they cut to Clapton playing Layla, and from like live. And he's just shredding on guitar. And I'm like, oh, listen. All I got out of that was listen to that. I got to listen to some good live Clapton when he was still rocking.
Yeah.
Everybody else would have watched it and laughed at the meme, but I'm looking at like, man, Clapton used to be able to play.
I saw him within a 2-week period. I saw a modern day got people who are really great guitar player in John Mayer, and then the week later I saw Eric Clapton live.
But
I mean, it was just like you sit there and you just look at this guy, and I'm like, if you could just play for 3 hours and not sing a note, just play for 3 hours,
yeah,
I would be ecstatic.
yeah. I remember watching the Cream reunion when they got back together after like 30 years, and he was playing like Fender amps and Fender guitars, and he used to play like Gibson SG and different amps and Marshalls and stuff back in Cream, and I was like, just play it like you played it back in Cream. He was like mellowed out and all that stuff, and I was like, Cream used to rock, and he's playing like Granddad Cream, and he's one of them guys that I wish he would like just rip it off one night and just start playing like he used to, but he'd rather play in the with the song now instead of being the guitar god. So oh well, he's one of the only, I think he might be the only person in Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 3 times. So you can't.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yep.
So that means he can play whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can do pretty much what he
don't have
wants.
to listen to me. So he should, but he won't.
All right. Did y'all know that March 23rd is known as Near Miss Day?
No. Why is that?
Because March 23rd, 1989, asteroid Asclepius.
Hey, don't cuss my name.
Asteroid Asclepius came close to hitting the Earth.
How many million miles did it go?
I don't know, and I don't remember that.
I am so thankful that we had Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck at the time to help us.
Did you see where that meteor hit the other day? Like a massive meteor hit a couple of days ago. Like,
I thought that was just bombing Iran.
no, they're really a meteor hit.
In Ohio.
Yeah, massive meteor.
Mm-hmm.
So it was
No.
like so many tons of the force of so many tons of TNT. It was crazy. So
But don't they say like if a meteor is big enough, it'll wipe us off the face of the earth?
yeah.
kind of
Well, I
stuff?
mean, it's what killed the dinosaurs. But I mean,
There's no benefit
but
to
it don't.
dinosaurs. Stop.
there's it don't take much. I mean, you don't need much of one to change. We're lucky,
yeah.
Our planet's built just perfect for us. But we're lucky but it always cracks me up. I mean, it's because of the space stuff. But We're talking about it's a near miss. This meteor's coming within 1.2 million miles of us is a near miss. I'm like, oh, okay, But I guess as far as space goes, that is a near miss.
Born February 23rd, 1968, but played a huge role in my life in the 80s.
Oh God, who?
Mark Price, a.k.a. Skippy from Family Ties. Do you remember
What?
who Mark Price
that was
is?
his friend. Yeah, Skippy. Yeah.
Why did that guy play such a big part? He
Because he was
minimal player
also
on that.
no, because
on
he
that
was
show.
also Eddie in the 1986 cult horror movie Trick or Treat.
Oh, wait a minute. That's the same guy?
That's the same guy.
I did not realize that was the same guy.
Yep.
Well, how did I never put that together?
He was also in 1988's The Rescue. He hosted the Disney Channel's Teen Win, Lose, or Draw from 89 to 92. He was a stand-up comedian, as well as a writer, producer for Disney Channel, Food Network, Animal Planet, GSN, Showtime, and he did a TBS game show.
Now that I'm looking at his face in my head, yeah, it's the same guy. I can't believe it. But how big a role does he play in your life, though? Because I've told you we have a chance to go see him in October.
I know.
They're doing a thing.
We're probably going to have to do it.
In October when it is? Yeah. There's a place,
Near
Chris.
Halloween.
On Halloween, or like the week before Halloween.
In Wilmington.
In Wilmington, where they're doing...
It's
where they
actually
filmed,
where Trick or Treat was filmed.
Yeah, the gym where the final scene happens. And he's going to be there signing autographs and all that stuff. And it's a whole thing. It's kind of cool.
Did you ever listen to that soundtrack, Chris?
No.
It's a good soundtrack, Chris. It is. So we might have to go do that. You can't say he holds a big part in your life and then we don't go a chance to meet him, Jan, for a weekend. We can film a live podcast there.
Yep.
What's his name?
Mark Price. With
Better
a
watch
C,
out
not
later,
a K.
Greg, when she calls you Mark.
If she called me Mark Price, it's probably because of that. No, he played for... I was going to say he played for Carolina. He played for Georgia Tech. Mark Price,
Oh,
the basketball
gosh.
player.
Didn't he
That
play
is
for the
going way
Cleveland
back.
Cavaliers?
Yeah, Cleveland Cavaliers, yeah. I thought he was
Yep.
played for Carolina for a minute, but I was wrong. There you go.
Well, there you have Jan's Gnarly News.
Oh, gnarly!
All right. Thank you, Jan. This episode, as I said before, is on the split in the mid-'80s of Van Halen, where Roth was out and Hagar was in. And the reason we're doing that is because we just did an album review last week, but March 24th, just a day or so after this podcast comes out, will be the 40th anniversary when Van Halen 5150 came out. And also, March 27th, 1986, was Sammy Hagar's first public performance as Van Halen's lead singer, as the star of their 5150 tour. So it's 40 years ago, basically this week, that Van Hagar was unleashed upon us. Which some people don't like it. Some people do. Some people are indifferent. At the time, I'll just say right now, I was a huge Van Halen fan, just like I am now. But they were my band. I wasn't in the Stones yet then. Van Halen was my band. And I had Ross, Crazy from the Heat, and all that stuff. And then he leaves, and I'm like, I can't believe my favorite band's over. But I went out and bought 5150 and listened to it and immediately loved it. So I could have went either way on that, but it was... we'll get into it. But anyway.
I'm a Gary Cherone guy.
Yeah.
Had it been anyone else, I don't think it would have went as well as it did.
It was meant to happen this way. So before we get into the statistic stuff, though, like I asked Jan first. Jan, what do you remember back then when that happened, and what were you?
I just remember being excited that Sammy was going to come in.
Yeah, he was.
I don't remember thinking, hey, this band is going to be no more.
Yeah, he was established on MTV already then. Sammy was.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean,
But they never recovered album sales wise from when Roth left.
Well, that's a misnomer, and we'll talk about that.
That's a sold copy.
It is, but it isn't though, and I'll tell you why when we get into it. So I'm going to argue that because you're right and you're wrong, Chris.
I don't think the digital numbers say I'm wrong.
Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and pull that in now because I'm looking at the numbers in front of me. I printed them out. Okay,
I got them too.
Roth, they put out 6 albums in Roth's initial run. Van Halen 1 went diamond. Its peak on the charts was 19. Van Halen 2 peaked at number 6, sold 5 million. Women and Children First peaked at number 6, sold 3 million. Fair Warning peaked at number 5 and sold 2 million, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. Diver Down peaked at number 3, went back up to 4 million, and I'll tell you why that is later on. And 1984 peaked at number 2 and is a diamond selling record. So Sammy, they put out 4 records of Sammy. The first one, 5150, number 1 album, 6 million sold. 0812, number 1 album, 4 million sold. For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, number 1 album, 3 million sold. And Balance, number 1 album, 3 million sold.
Number ones don't lie.
Right. But here's the
But
thing.
here's the thing, so the first album that Van Halen put out and 1984, Sammy didn't sell any
That's
albums
what I'm
to total those.
but that's what I'm gonna argue
that's
with
why
you.
the Roth era's better.
But that's why I'm going to argue with you on this. They have a legit, I will say, 1984 is a legit diamond selling record. Jump, Panama, Hot for Teachers sold that record. That's a legit diamond. Van Halen 1 is diamond because over 30 years, people bought it on vinyl. And then all of a sudden, hey, we got cassette tapes. They bought it on cassette. Hey, we got CDs. They bought it on CDs. That album is 10 million with an asterisk next to it because it sold the same album to the same people multiple times.
You can't use the asterisk with that. Those are the actual sales. Now,
I'm just telling you. Now,
but you can say
5150s,
that about any album, though.
5150 sold on cassette and CD, and none of these have been. I was telling Jan this before this. They haven't audited these records in years, but if you audited this, 5150 is closer to 10 than it is 6 now.
I'm looking at from a site called chartmaster.org, which is an updated, which they use digitals and they use all this stuff combined kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the detailed sales, album 1 sold 15.5. The second album sold 7.2.
Chartmaster is they're making up their own numbers. I'm taking my numbers from the Recording Industry Artists Association, which is the only one that matters. They're
But you have to admit, they've not sold anywhere close. The Hagar era did not sell anywhere close to the Roth era.
It sold. If you take those,
Not close.
it sold close enough that they were all number 1 albums, and it's nobody was griping at 6 and 4 and 3 million platinum. They sold Balance 3 million platinum when Alternative was big. They were one of the only rock bands that still sold that many records and stayed rock. So I'm not going to argue that. I'm sure they had more albums sold with Roth, but they had more only number 1s with Sammy.
Only number one.
If we want to get into it, Gary Cherone ruined them with their only gold record. And don't
It was his fault.
Yeah.
That was really his fault. Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you don't get in an argument. But anyway, yeah, Cherone, Van Halen 3 went gold, 500,000, which it's a good album. It's not a great album. And then A Different Kind of Truth with Roth, their comeback album, peaked at number 2, but it's never been certified. It's never even went gold. I like that album. I like half of it. If you took half of it and half of Van Halen 3 with Cherone, you'd have a great album. But anyway, I was just pointing that out, the selling stuff. We're not here to argue which version was better. We're just going to argue about. See, this is the same argument people
we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Which version was better?
No, we're not. We're talking about the split and
hands down the Hagar version.
No, hands
game
down,
over.
it's a tie. Both versions are perfect.
They both are good.
Yeah,
they're both good versions.
That's how I love them.
I mean, if you had a band, would you want a bunch of number 1s or would you want a bunch of not number 1s?
I'd want a bunch of albums sold.
I know. For the record, the fact that 1984 didn't go number 1 played a big part in Roth leaving because it didn't get number 1 because.
You mean it wasn't his huge ego?
Well, and I'll get to that. But it didn't go to number 1 because Michael Jackson Thriller was number 1, and part of the reason Michael Jackson Thriller is number 1 is because Eddie Van Halen played on Beat It and didn't tell anybody and didn't get paid for it, just took a case of beer and said, I don't need no money for this, and didn't tell anybody in the Van Halen band he did it till it came out. And it pissed Roth off, man. I mean, he was he was not very happy that Eddie contributed to the album that kept them from being number 1 with.
Well, in that year, you had Purple Rain come out, which was 22 weeks at number 1.
Right.
Thriller was out. The guy that I loved to death, the greatest solo artist, greatest musician of all time, Bruce Springsteen's crap was out. Born in the USA.
Yeah, I know.
And Footloose. All were out that same year.
But
so
Van Halen got the number 2 behind Thriller and never passed it. And that
it's hard to pass Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I know.
mean, come on.
But
especially in the 80s.
But Eddie kept it quiet. Roth didn't like him doing anything outside the band, and all that stuff. So he kept it quiet and didn't tell him he did it. But
I don't think I'd have to run it by the guy. The name of the band is Van Halen, and my name is Van Halen.
That's the problem, though. Roth considered it as much his band, even though the name was Van Halen. It was just as much his band as them. But I listened to the audiobook. Ted Templeman, who was Van Halen's producer from the start, produced all their records up until 5150. And Noel Monk, who was their manager, from basically their first record up to 1984. So I know a lot of stuff behind all this. And a lot of the reason Roth quit is because he wanted to be a movie star. That was part of it. He had a picture deal to make a movie, and he really thought he was going to be this big movie star. And he was big back then, you know. So he went out and put that crazy on the heat. Roth's big problem was he didn't look at it. Him and Eddie were built different. Roth wanted to be the star, and Eddie wanted to be a musician. Roth, you know, was like, let's pump records out, but let's put like half of it as cover songs, because you're guaranteed a hit with a cover song the way we do them. That's why Diver Down's mostly cover songs, because they wanted a quick record out, and Roth's like, let's do a cover album. So they put a few originals, but the rest were covers. The rest of the guys in the band hated it. Eddie did not like doing cover songs, but Roth was like, you know, that sells. So that's why he put out that Crazy from the Heat, all cover songs. It sold really good, and that helped push his ego, you know. So Templeman was helping him with his movie, and he just decided he didn't like where they were going with the keyboards and stuff, with Eddie wanting to play piano. So when he left, here's what a lot of people don't realize. They talk about it in the book. When Roth quit, everybody left with Roth. The touring guys, the crew, the road crew, they all went with him. Templeman went with him, although they were probably done for anyway, because you got to read that book sometime, or listen to the audiobook that Ted Templeman did on that, because how 1984 turned out as big as it did is amazing, because Don Landy was the engineer, and him and Eddie started building his 5150 studio there at his house, and they had always used like a big recording studios that Templeman and, you know, the record label had picked out. Well, he builds this tiny studio on his house and decides we're going to record the album here. And Ted says in the book that like the drum room is like this, almost like a closet. You could barely fit a kid in there. That's why when he started using a lot of electronic drums, because it's easier to fit them in there. And he was not happy with Eddie and them doing. And Eddie and Landy would be in there at night recording stuff and producing, working on stuff. And Temple would come in and say, let me hear it. It's like, oh, we'll get it to you. He talks about in the book how he had to chase Don Landy around, like they were like jumping from car to car, running from him, because they didn't want to give him the tapes because they weren't ready for him yet. Apparently they was like on a lot of coke back then too, you know, which everybody was then. But it's a wild story to hear that, and how that album turned out as great as it did after all the stuff, you know. And that was when Templeman's like, you know, Roth's the star, Eddie wants to do his own thing, I'm going with Roth, and they all chose poorly.
If you get a chance to, you probably have seen it.
Yeah.
Talking about Roth wanting to be the big star and stuff. The Bill Hader where he's talking to Conan O'Brien about him coming to the South Park guys.
Yeah.
That is one of the funniest things with, hey, it's Diamond Dave. I mean, he was that. I mean, the group was Van Halen.
Yeah.
And David Lee Roth was able to let me see how I'm trying to say it. He was big, and he was the front man, right? So he's the face and all stuff. But he was still large enough as a front man, and he had a great voice back in the day, and he really could sing. I mean, really great sound. He was able to separate himself away from it, so to speak, that his personality, he was able to go above being a Van Halen at that point. I don't know if I said that exactly right, but his ego did get in the way. I mean, he was able to go, hey, we got the greatest guitar player in the world, but look at me. And people are like, oh my God, this guy is amazing. Yeah. So, I mean, it was an ego driven thing, but I think to be a front man or a musician at any kind of level to there, you're going to have an ego of some kind.
Yeah, you have to. But here's the thing, Chris, talk about him. He was a good singer. He actually wasn't a good singer. He was perfect for that band. But Templeman talks about in his book, and I don't know if a lot of people realize this or not, but the idea of putting Sammy Hagar in as Van Halen as a singer was there before they ever recorded their first album. When Templeman, a guy told him, you got to see this band. And Templeman had been working with the Doobie Brothers and some bands, and he used to be a musician, and then he'd switched over to being a producer and stuff. And he went and saw Van Halen in a club, and it's like, this band's great. And you know, he's like, this is freaky. This guy on guitar, nobody's played like him. So when they get him in the studio to record Van Halen 1, they get in there and Roth starts singing. He's like, this guy cannot sing. This is not, he's worked with real singers, okay? He's like, this guy is going to drag this band down. This is not going to work with him. And he'd even talked to him like, we might have to throw Roth out of this band. And he had produced Sammy's records in the late 70s. Templeman had him and Sammy were real good friends. And he was considering calling Sammy Hagar and had talked to Eddie about it because Eddie loved Montrose. He loved the band Montrose. He loved Sammy. And he had talked to him about, we might, if I can get Sammy Hagar. And he said that they were really probably going to do it. And they talked about it. And they were working on some song on that first album. And he said, I need some lyrics. And said he watched Roth run out and jump in his car, put his knees up on the dash, and 5 minutes bring in lyrics that were brilliant. And he realized, okay, this guy's, he's not the greatest singer, but we can make it work. But this guy can write lyrics like nobody's business. And he has got that charisma. So he said he's glad he didn't call Sammy then. But it was close to them calling Sammy. I don't know if he would have took it then because Sammy was starting to establish himself as a solo act. But I don't think people realize that them, being in there, it was not the first time that Sammy had been thrown out as the name for a lead singer for Van Halen. But, when they left, when they split, Eddie asked Patti Smythe of the group Scandal to be the lead singer, a woman. He wanted a woman singer. She said no. He talked to Daryl Hall and said, hey, you want to sing for Van Halen? He said no. And so I think he had a couple more names, but he was getting his Ferrari worked on, and his mechanic was also Sammy's Ferrari mechanic, and said, hey, man, you should call Sammy Hagar. I got his number here, and gave it to him, and they called him, and they went and jammed, and they realized they're a perfect fit. That's how they got together. It wasn't because, Ted Templeman, because he wasn't talking to Ted Templeman then. They were out. Templeman was with Roth. It's just freaky how it all worked out. Sammy was already established as a solo artist. He had his first big million-selling record right before that, and it just started building up he was starting to headline and do all this stuff, and then it was like, all right, see you later, band. I'm joining Van Halen. And in theory, you think about it, Van Halen built with this sound, they had and everything. But in reality, this is what I think a lot of the Roth Van Halen fans don't realize is Sammy probably saved that band, because look at Roth's career over the next 5 years after that. It was that big Eat 'Em a Smile record, and then Skyscraper, which was, it sold $1 million, and then A Little Ain't Enough. I don't know if it when he went platinum. And then he was done for. That style of music was dying out. The keyboards, and they call it mom rock. I hear people talk about, oh, that's for girls, Van Hagar. But that's what the music was going to then. It wasn't Eddie it wasn't Sammy that put keyboards in that band. It was Eddie. And it worked. Say what you will, but it worked. Did you like them then, Chris?
I was not a Hagar Van Halen fan until probably 15 years ago.
Really?
Yep. Yeah. I was wholeheartedly Van Halen, not Van Hagar.
Yeah.
Still prefer those songs but as I've gotten older and I've grown to appreciate the Van Hagar stuff more than I did back in the day.
I wish, and I don't know how y'all, Jan, how you feel about this. I wish they had just changed the name to Van Hagar when they did split. It would have made things easier, and it would have stopped some of the hardcore Roth fans from just crapping all over.
Could you imagine Eddie agreeing to do that?
No, he wouldn't have.
No.
He might have then. He wasn't quite as he was up the creek in love with the sound when Sammy joined the band though, because I've heard people around him, and I think even Alex and some other people said that he was wanting to do so much more complex music, and he couldn't because Roth couldn't sing it. And then Sammy comes in. Not only could Sammy sing anything, he also is a great lead guitar player, and it allowed him to all right, Sammy, that first tour, Sammy played a lot of guitar, and Eddie went and got on his keyboards and played. And he could never do that with Roth in the band, and that's why I love, if you're on Spotify, they just put I think it might be out or it's coming out this week, the 40th anniversary 5150 remastered, and there's a live album that come with it. It was a DVD or VHS back in the day called 5150 Live in New Haven. They call it New Halen on that. And it's awesome documentation of the 5150 tour. And it's one of the shows on there. And Sammy's playing the mean lead guitar on a couple of them songs. And Eddie, you can see playing the keyboard, just biggest grin on his face, wow, look what I can do now. I know that's what people probably didn't want to hear then. They want to see, you don't want to, you see Eddie Van Halen, you see him on keyboard, but that's what he wanted to do. They did make way more complex music with Sammy than they did with Roth.
Well, the thing too, I saw Sammy, what was that, 2 years ago? We saw them live last year. He can still sing very well. Very good singer. David cannot. I mean, that's the thing too. It's like certain guys that were able to sing back in the day, like Vince Neil, now can't sing at all.
Yeah.
So, like, you look at Sammy's taking better care of his voice. He's had a better singing
Well,
longevity. But
here's
that,
what's. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was going to say that's the one thing that I'll give, that him credit for sure is that he's definitely a better singer than Roth.
I'll tell you
Roth
why
was.
that is. One thing is Sammy, I think, has not taken himself that serious over the years and is just whatever happens, happens, and he like sort of enjoys life. And Roth, for some reason, up until probably the last 10 years, still thinks he's 1984 David Lee Roth. And I can say that because I saw it in person. In 2002, something I never thought I'd see was the Best of Both Worlds tour, whatever it was. Sammy and David Lee Roth went out on the road together and toured. And every night they would flip-flop who was the headliner. So when they came to Charlotte, I went and saw that tour because I was like, this don't get no better than this. I'm seeing my two Van Halen guys, Roth opened. And his opening band, his band he had with him was a couple guys from Van Halen tribute bands. And he's up there in his same outfit he wore in like the late 80s. I mean, he stayed in shape, but he was balding and his hair was thinning and all that stuff, but it was still long. But he was up there doing the same jokes he did in the 80s, hitting on the women in the front row, giving you basically a time capsule show from like 1984. But he couldn't sing anymore. He couldn't sing anymore. And I mean, he could, but he couldn't. But it was embarrassing. It was kind of everybody in the crowd. And I've mentioned this on my music board that I post on, and people that were there at that show have said it. And people that saw that tour said it. Said people are laughing when he's telling these corny jokes and stuff on stage. People are laughing at him, not with him. And even the David Lee Roth fans had to say, yeah, Sammy blew him on stage every night of that tour. Because then Sammy came out with his party, and he had Michael Anthony that night playing bass with him that night, and it was like such a different thing. And
Well, he's the dad joke guy.
yeah,
He's a joke. He's a caricature of himself up there.
but fast forward 7 years after that, he gets back with Van Halen, did that first tour with Van Halen, and I went and saw him in Raleigh, and he was singing decent again, and they had controlled him a little bit, and I was so glad I got to see them with Roth. I would say, it was a 75% greatest show is probably what I would have saw in the 80s. He had got his vocal problems worked out, and he was under control. He wasn't embarrassed himself. But then 2 years later, they toured again, and somebody went to him and said, hey, you could sing these songs 3 levels higher than you sing them. And he decided to start doing that, and that's what he's done for the last 10 years or so, which if you listen to that Van Halen Live in Tokyo album they put out with him, I swear I think that Eddie Van Halen put that record out to embarrass David Lee Roth, because there's one weak link on that album, and it's David Lee Roth, and it's bad. Jan, you've heard it, have you not? Mm-hmm. It's bad. I'm telling you, people, go and listen to that, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. But then 2020, Jan and I go see Kiss on their final tour, and David Lee Roth's opening for him. And somebody got to him again and told him, sing these songs on a little register where you can sing them, and talk the parts when you need to, and you'll be all right. And he did it. And he sounded good that night, did he not? He sounded like classic David Lee Roth. And then he does like 2 months of that, COVID hits, and then I see him after that doing stuff, and he's back to screaming again at the top of his lungs. And it's just like, no. So he has an ego on him that, I guess you need an ego to be a rock star. But sometimes, you need to listen to people when they tell you to, you're embarrassing yourself. And he's never listened to that. But, Sammy Hagar he's did the Jimmy Buffett route. He's Cabo Wabo doing his beach stuff and the laid back, and the guy's loving life. And, he's 79 playing right now. He's great. So, I just remember getting that 5150 on cassette and listening to it and being happy that it didn't suck. And then realizing this thing has a lot of great songs on it. And there are great songs on it. Rock guitar songs. Just everybody wants to hear, it's got, which song you like better on that? When It's Love, or Love Walks In, or, it's like, not every song on the album's about love. There's a lot of guitar songs on that album. But people just want to point out and say that all Sammy sung about was love, so it's, I don't know. I'll flip it around. Did any of y'all have David Lee Roth's Eat 'Em and Smile? Did you, Chris?
Which album?
David Lee Roth, Eat 'Em and Smile, the album that he came out with.
Skyscraper.
Eat 'Em and Smile is the one that had Yankee Rose and all that stuff on it.
I think I had those cassette singles.
Yeah. Well, I
But
went
I didn't
out
have the albums.
when Van Halen came out. When I bought 5150, when Eating a Smile came out, I bought it because I still loved Roth and I loved that album. It was a great album. It had Steve Vai on guitar, and he was more than capable of being an Eddie Van Halen clone. It was like probably what the next Van Halen record would have sounded like, if Roth had still been in charge. And then Skyscraper, which I think maybe somebody needs to put a book. I know Ross got a book out, but I've heard it's just a lot of him BS and stuff. So, but I got a feeling that with 5150 being as big as it was, and they had their first #1 record then, and it was a big hit. And I think by Skyscraper, he decided maybe I do need to add keyboards because he changed his sound a little bit on Skyscraper, and Steve Vai and them were like, we didn't sign up to play this kind of music, and quit right after that record. That probably hurt his solo career as much as anything else, as his band quit on him. I always think about when I read about that, where the road crew and everybody went with Roth. What a bad decision you people made. Even the security guys went with Roth. I think they all think Roth's the star. Van Halen's just going to fade away. But I mean, even both of you got to say, like, even back then, as good as Roth was singing, Eddie Van Halen's guitar was what sold those records. I mean, the songs did too, but I mean, he was the one that crafted the music and stuff. So, but it's wild because Templeman, he went with Roth and he had nothing to do with Van Halen then after that. But when they're recording, I'm thinking, I'm going to get this wrong. I'm thinking it's For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. They were having problems recording Sammy's vocals, and he said, call Ted, and he came in and helped record Sammy's vocals and got them right. Sort of, he came back and, bend the knee, and Eddie and them let him back in to work with Sammy. But the whole thing of the split, getting into your guy, Chris Cherone, when Noel Monk, their manager, they fired him. He was a road crew guy, and they didn't have a band manager, and they was like, no, you want to be our band manager? And he's like, yeah. And he took it over, but he was never a great band manager. He was a road crew guy that would run the road management. So when they fired him right before they broke up, Sammy brought his guy, Ed Leffler, in, his manager, and he got to looking at the books and realized, you guys have been getting ripped off for years. The record label is just ripping you guys off. You're getting paid pennies on what you should have got paid. And Ed Leffler renegotiated all their contracts, got them tons more money. He was probably has much to do with them getting #1 with all the stuff he did, managing that band and doing everything right. And he died in the early 90s. And that's when all the trouble started with Hagar and stuff, because that's when they hired, and I knew his name, and I'm blanking on it now. I think it's Ray Daniels. They hired him to manage the band, and he managed Rush. That was the only band he managed, but he also managed, I think he did manage Extreme, or just Gary Cherone one. And he married Alex's, like, the wife's sister or something like that. So he was Alex Van Halen's brother-in-law. And so when he got in and started managing the band, he clashed with Sammy. And he started telling him, Sammy's wanting to go solo. You should get rid of him. And I've got a guy for you. And so when they sort of forced Sammy out, he says he was fired. They say he quit, but either way, they brought in Cherone because Daniels managed him. That's how Cherone got that gig, Chris. But Cherone was a bad choice as the third lead singer, but he worked live great, and that's one of my biggest.
He did both versions.
Right, and that's why
live.
I was so, I was, when they split in the mid 80s, I was like, whatever. And I love both guys. But when Sammy got booted out in 95, I was, 96. I was so mad at Van Halen then, because I was like, how dare you do this to Sammy? I was firmly Sammy guy then. That when that Van Halen 3 record came out, I was like, I ain't buying this crap, forget that. I eventually bought it, but they were coming to Charlotte, and I said I refused to.
I was there.
Yeah, I didn't. It wasn't. Not many people was there, right, Chris?
I mean, I sat in the grass from what I remember. I don't remember.
I think it was like half full or something. I read like 7 or 8.
What year was that?
This was 98, 99. There was like 8,000 people there, but like I was 95 at Charlotte, the same place, seeing them on the Balance tour, and it was jam-packed standing room. You couldn't fit anybody else in there, and then 2 or 3 years later, it's half full with Cherone. But I refused to go see that tour because I was like, you fired Sammy. Forget you. And then for years, like a year later, when you start downloading stuff on Napster, there was a live concert from that tour, the soundboard mix. And I downloaded it and listened to it, and I was like, I'm a moron. Because Cherone did both eras perfectly. He did like half the show was Hagar, half the show was Roth, and then like 3 of their songs, and it was great. He did both of them. You know, he did them justice, and all those songs that Sammy refused to sing, he would sing, and I was like, I should have went. That's my biggest concert regret, was not going to that show. So,
Yeah, I always wondered about whenever. So let's say that you loved Van Halen, right? It was a
Right.
group back in, like, then they split up and then they get Sammy Hagar to come in.
yeah,
You still love 3 of the 4 members. You don't love the new lead singer.
yeah.
And you reluctantly go, okay, I'm going to go to the concert. They've got one album out, 5150, or was it OU 812? Which was the first
5150.
one? 5150. So they got 5150 out. You go to the show, what do you get? 9 songs of theirs, a couple Montrose songs. I mean, you don't get any of the early Van Halen songs.
They did.
I mean, I think did they play them? I don't know.
Yeah, they did Jump. They did Jump. They did Panama. I think they did one more. Oh, they did Ain't Talking About Love, and then they did like three Sammy solo songs, and then they did the rest was that 5150 album.
Yeah.
But
I think that would have probably aggravated me, but not.
I get what you're saying. You want to
go
hear
back to ego thing again.
Yeah, but I was always like, well, at least he did Jump, and they did the songs people want to hear. But over the years, I looked it up, and Sammy did Ain't Talking About Love, You Really Got Me, which is a cover song, but Van Halen made it theirs.
Right. Yeah.
He did Unchained, Jump, Panama. He did Running with the Devil a couple times and never did it again. And there was like one more he did. But he never really did a whole lot of. But see, when David Roth came back, he refused to sing any Sammy songs. He didn't sing. He couldn't. I mean, let's be honest. He wasn't going to sing. I think somebody was laying it out one time, and I remember them said that he could have done a Finish What You Started and maybe one other song, but he could not sing any of the other stuff. But I know Roth, being cocky after he came back, said, yeah, when he was out of the band, he said, Sammy has to sing my songs every night. I don't have to sing, I never sing a Hagar song. But it was like, I've heard bootlegs where they're singing Montrose songs back in that. So he was singing Sammy songs back in the day. But,
Right.
yeah, but that shows you though how well the Van Hagar thing worked, that they were still selling out arenas with only doing like 3 old songs, and the rest was Sammy and the new songs. People love that record. Yeah, I was looking at it's wild because I did the timeline here. Roth was in Van Halen from 74 to 85, and Sammy was 86 to 96. Cherone was 98 to 99. They did nothing from till 2003, 2004 with Sammy again. And then he was out. And then in 2006, Roth joined back and was there till they broke up in 2020. So Roth ended up getting like 25 years in the band after all. But Sammy had like 12. But that 2003, 2004 reunion with Sammy, I was there at that. And I saw the tour opener in Greensboro, North Carolina, and it was great. And then I started seeing bootlegs and reading stuff on my music board about it. They went downhill after that. And Eddie was bad on drugs and drinking again, and some of them shows were nightmares. And that was the last show was I think in Arizona. Mikey and Sammy had their dressing rooms on one side of the arena, and Alex and Eddie had theirs on the other side. And when the show ended, you can see Sammy and Mikey going off the stage on the right side, I think, and Eddie and Alex going to the left, and that's the last they ever saw of each other till Eddie died. They didn't. That was it. They never saw, neither one of them ever saw those two again. It's just crazy how, and I see stuff from that tour, and you see them up there, and they look like they're having a good time, but I read Sammy's book, and I've read other stuff about it. They were not having a good time.
I think Sammy could turn anything into a good time.
Yeah, but Eddie looked like he was enjoying himself, but you realize he just had disdain for Sammy then, and Mikey. They wrote Mikey out of the band before that tour. Michael Anthony was not a full member of Van Halen in 2003, 2004 when they toured. They basically threw him out of the band, and Sammy said, I will not tour unless he's up there with us. So they basically hired him on as a paid musician for that tour. They screwed him over so much. They talk about it in his books. Like Michael Anthony is known as the nicest guy in rock, and he got hosed over so bad by the Van Halen brothers over the years. It's kind of sad, but I don't know. It's funny because that band, I lived and died on that band. And the day Eddie Van Halen died, my mom texted me and said, I'm so sorry. Because my mom
I think I texted you that day too.
Yeah, my mom just knew how much I loved it. I thought that was so cool that my mom remembered how much
Yeah.
I loved Van Halen as a kid and thought to text me that day. But I just,
Well, when you die, what Van Halen song are we playing at your funeral?
I want Sway by the Rolling Stones played at my funeral. But
Oh, really?
yeah.
Okay.
But maybe I'll pick Feel So Good by Sucker in a Bury Me in a Suit, Jan, and play Sucker in a 3-piece. That'd be a good one. Which, Sucker in a 3-piece. You're going to dog Van Hagar. Listen to that song. It rocks as hard as any David Lee Roth Van Halen song ever. So, there you go.
There are very few that do.
Well, so, yeah, anyway.
I can remember being 10, 12 years old, and my older brother, I distinctively remember him having the albums 1984 and Diver Down.
Yeah.
Because I used to love to sneak in there and just look at the cover of 1984.
Yeah.
And I didn't really listen a lot then. It was probably a couple years later that I really started listening to those. So I think it was those two albums that I listened to the most of the original Van Halen.
Well, that 1984 album has the best album cover maybe ever.
I know.
And
it was intriguing to a 10-year-old.
Yeah, I had that. I won one of those mirrors at the county fair of the 1984 Van Halen with the baby smoking a cigarette. Mm-hmm. And it sit in my room from like 1985, whatever, till I moved out like 96. And I remember packing it up and I broke it when I was moving out in 96.
Oh, sad.
And if I could find that again, I'm telling you, I'm putting it out right now. This podcast goes around the world and elsewhere. Anybody that's listening to this, if you have that mirror, that country fair mirror you could get for winning like a dime toss or something, the baby, I'll pay not whatever it takes, but I'll
really,
give you
whatever.
No,
almost whatever.
Yeah, no, but I'll give you a fair shake on it, when it comes to buying it off of you, because I want that. I've looked on eBay. Those things didn't make it through the 80s and 90s, not many of them without breaking. Jen, didn't you have a couple of those?
Yes, I remember having Def Leppard for sure. I don't remember the other
Do you remember
ones.
those, Chris?
Which one? The fair mirrors?
Yeah, the fair mirrors.
I'm looking on eBay right now, and there's a vintage 1980s Van Halen Carnival Fair 6x6 prize glass mirror with original case.
Is it the baby 1984?
Yep.
Text me the link and.
What is it, like $500?
$60.
Hey.
It's not that outrageous, but it'd break on the way here probably.
Better
It may
order
not
it.
be the same thing. It might not be the same, but no, I remember those.
6x6 sounds like it though, because
Yeah,
I
they
saw
were
one.
small.
I saw one last year for sale, but it's
Actually,
like
they had two different sizes.
yeah, they had a big one, and that's not the one I had. I had the small
You won
one,
the
so.
first size.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
if you wanted
I
to keep
remember
playing,
Trade up.
you
Yeah.
could trade up for the bigger size.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds. I see them now. Here's one that's a 13 by 13
Yeah.
for 125.
That's the big
so,
one. I don't want the big one. I want the little one. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll send it to you. I'll text it over to you.
All right. But
Luckily, you get a chance to order it before this podcast drops, because when this podcast
I already
drops,
ordered it. Sorry.
everyone else will know.
yeah, everybody's gonna be fighting for that.
I ordered it. I'm charging you double for it.
But that's
how
why
it
I
works.
was that's why I was a big Van Halen fan though, because like I say, for Christmas I wanted a Van Halen record back in like '83 or something like that, and so I asked for it for Christmas, and my best friend Eric, they got me 2 cassettes that year, and it was Fair Warning, and I remember thinking now that I probably wanted their first record, but they got me Fair Warning and Diver Down. That was my first 2 records, and that's why Fair Warning's my favorite Van Halen record over all versions, because that's the first one I owned. But those were the 2 that were sold the least. I mean, for a long time, the 2 that people would put near below. But then I got I was into 1984 and all that stuff. And I went backtracked and caught all that stuff. But that was my first band that first record was Hall & Oates, but the first band I truly worshipped and would fight people over is Van Halen. And
I'm looking at the track listing for 1984, since we're talking about that mirror right now. What's amazing is 9 songs on that album. How long an album do you think that is?
probably 35 minutes or less.
Yeah, 33 minutes.
Yeah. Well, that's how that used to be if you think about it.
I know, because you were doing, everything had to be a 3-minute airplay song, 4 minutes max,
Yeah.
And it's so weird because, like, one group that I really love, modern day music, it's been around for 30 years or whatever, is Tool. And
God,
they've got like 2 songs, 30 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just different. It's just a totally different thing that you can look at it, and it's 9 songs, 33 minutes.
Well, I'll tell you another reason songs used to be shorter back then too, was because they were put out on vinyl, and you can only fit so much on a vinyl record. And I happen to know that before, but I also saw this week one of the bands that I loved from the 70s that most people don't like or don't even know of is Black Oak, Arkansas. I love them. There ain't no women out there like Black Oak, Arkansas. Jan's rolling her eyes. But somebody posted a picture of when most of the band had quit, they put one of their records out, and it was Jim Dandy but it wasn't selling, so it became Jim Dandy's.
Oh, Jim
Yeah,
Dandy.
it became Jim Dandy's Black Oak, Arkansas, the album was. And somebody was showing how they had the version that just said Jim Dandy on it. And some of the people that know everybody in the band and know all the stuff about that, in the group, somebody posted, yeah, I was talking to Jim one time about that record and said that the LP, the vinyl, the songs were sped up versus what's on the CD when you listen to it now. Because when they recorded it, it was too long to fit on a vinyl record. So they went in and sped the tape up just a hair to speed the songs up so they could fit it on the vinyl. So when it's come out on CD years later, they went back and done the master tracks and just played at the regular speed. That's how they had to fit it on the record to speed the songs up. And, you think about that now, it's like, you could do whatever. It's digital. You can record as long as you want.
Yep.
I think it's better before digital, but that's just me. But anyway,
Digital's just easier.
yeah. But anyway, we've rambled a lot. I've rambled a lot, and everybody's listened to me. But, this
Yeah,
is...
me and Jan took a nap.
Yeah,
Yep.
I know. This is one that is like in my wheelhouse, though, because I love everything Van Halen, and I hate that they're gone now. And I will say I don't think I'm going to love the next Van Halen record. I don't care.
Unless they miraculously invite Sammy back.
Or invite Roth back. It's just, don't put out a Van Halen record. Or invite Cherone back. There's 3 lead singers for Van Halen. You've made it all these years. Eddie's gone. He recorded these songs that you're going to finish with Steve Lukather. Put one of those 3. It don't have to be Sammy. It's probably not going to be Sammy because him and Alex will never talk again. Alex has hated Sammy ever since Sammy's book came out, and he told about how messed up Eddie was in that 2004 reunion. But everybody knows it.
The truth hurts.
Yeah, Eddie was in bad shape then, and Sammy just told it like it was. But Alex has held that against him and will never talk to him again, and that's fine. Don't get Sammy back. And Roth can't sing. Get Gary Cherone. He can still sing
Maybe
great.
we get John Corabi.
Well, yeah, but I mean, really, call Cherone. Give him a chance to wrap up his end with Van Halen better than it was when the record label basically told them, this is why he only did one record. It didn't sell, and the record label said, either get Sammy or Dave back or we're ending your contract. And so they got Sammy back eventually.
Yeah, we talked about that the other day. You're like, I'll never listen to her. I'm not ever planning on listening. And I'm like, well, it depends on who the lead singer is. Depends on who they get to do the singing.
But they're
I
talking
agree.
about mix matching, like bringing in different singers for different songs. It's like, well, then just say it's the Eddie Van Halen solo project. Then don't call it Van Halen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tribute album to
Yeah.
Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah. So I say forget the Sammy, the Dave. Call Cherone. I'll buy it. I'll buy it on vinyl, and if you bring Cherone back, I'll show him some love and buy it.
Yeah.
But they won't do it. So. And it's funny because after all that stuff went down with Cherone and Sammy and all that stuff, Sammy would bring him every time Sammy played in Boston or somewhere. He brought Gary out to sing with him. Sammy had no problem. I've watched interviews with them together. They did one with Nuno Betancourt. Him and Gary and Nuno did it one of Sammy's television shows. So, Sammy would sing with anybody. He tried to get Roth to sing with him on that tour, and he wouldn't do it. So
Yeah, Gary and Extreme is another, is a great group back from the 90s. But, I agree. I think give Gary, he's a underrated lead singer.
Yeah, he is. And I was listening to that album the other day. But anyway, closing thoughts on this episode, Jan.
Well, as I listened to some Van Halen today and looked back at what I liked about Van Halen with Roth, and I had, I think, 2 of their albums. I bought every Van Halen with Sammy Hagar.
Yeah.
Huge fan of them.
Yeah.
I didn't buy the Cherone. Sorry. I did listen to it, but I didn't buy it. And kind of the way I can relate to it that people could understand is, when you go on vacation and you go to this hotel and it's just not quite exactly home.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel exactly right. That's Van Halen with Roth to me. But then you give me Van Halen with Sammy Hagar, and I'm like, oh, I'm at home in my comfy bed, and everything is right in the world.
You mean
That's
it's more,
the difference in those with me.
So it's what you're saying is with David Lee Roth, it's like staying at the Four Seasons, but with Hagar, it's like staying at Best Western. That's what you're saying, right?
No, she's saying with Hagar, it's like staying
No, what I'm saying,
she's staying at home and enjoying herself at home instead of
no,
like.
I was the way I said it was the better way. That's definitely. It was definitely.
I get what she's saying because there is a.
But you said it earlier. It's the Van Hagar was geared more toward women. It was more of a
It
women's
wasn't geared more
era.
to women. That's what guys say.
Mom rock.
It was
Mom rock.
it was not mom rock, but it wasn't geared more towards women. It was geared more toward actual radio airplay and what was big at the time then. They changed with the time, which is not a bad thing. I don't know why people keep thinking that's a bad thing. If Metallica hadn't changed with the time, they'd be opening for Judas Priest on this tour right now.
Which they should be.
Metallica changed, Metallica, they put out that Black Album, changed their sound, shortened the songs, and has become the biggest band in the world. They had to change, or you get, or you're like Megadeth and you're opening for Iron Maiden, which ain't a bad thing to be, but Megadeth never changed. They did a little bit, but not quite as much as Metallica. But it all comes down to what I've always said is I understand it as a musician. I didn't understand it till I started playing music, but I get it. I had first couple bands I was in, we picked songs to play that we knew we could play, and the stuff that you want to hear at a bar, and cover songs, blah blah blah. The last band I was in, Roadside Alice, we were all great on our instruments, and we played tougher songs and played stuff we wanted to hear, and stuff that I could not have played in those bands 20 years before that. That's where Van Hagar was, because Eddie's like, I can write way more experimental music. I can write stuff in different keys now. I can finally play the stuff that's in my head because I've got a guy that can sing it like I hear it in my head. That's the difference.
He could relax in his comfy bed instead of worrying about the subpar hotel.
Yeah. But I will say the one thing that was better in Van Halen than Van Hagar was Eddie's guitar tone was way better on those first 6 records. He had that brown sound, they call it. Yeah, it was better then. But, But Chris, you got any final thoughts on that?
I'm just going to take one foot out the door, and then I'm going to take my whiskey home. I'm just going to listen. I like both versions.
Yeah.
The other version took me a long time to come around to.
Yeah.
I'm still prefer Van Halen, the first 6 albums. I still prefer that. It's more just in your face rock music, in my opinion.
The beauty about it for me is I get on Spotify and I hit shuffle on Van Halen, and even if it's a Cherone song that pops up, I listen to it. So
Well, I got Van Halen Essentials on Apple Music. Then there's a Van Halen Essentials Daily Roth, and there's a Sammy Hagar.
Yeah.
That's what I listen to today. But those 2 catalogs, those 2, and I will say it's a closer than it used to be as I get older.
Yeah.
But it's still, I gravitate more toward those first albums.
Well, it is funny. I've told Jan, I've noticed over the last couple of years, because I've had Sirius on and off for 20-something years now. And back in the day, you heard Sammy Van Halen was on Classic Rewind and the 80s on 8, and that was about it. You hear Sammy Van Halen now on Classic Rewind. Every now and then they'll throw one on Hair Nation, which is weird, but they'll throw on Ozzy's Boneyard, which is the harder edge rock, and they've started playing more Hagar versions of Van Halen on Ozzy's Boneyard than they do the Roth, which cracks me up. But there's like a shift. I've noticed that more and more of the Van Hagar stuff's getting played now. I guess it's people of our generation growing older and remembering that was stuff from school days and all that stuff, because maybe it helped them that they came out right when we were just hitting high school. And like I say, that OU812's that whole soundtrack to my junior year in high school. So anyway, it was a long, good discussion on Van Halen,
Cherone.
Anyway, it's just Van Halen. Hey, but let me throw this out. Last thing. It just hit me. I forgot. You want to salvage that Van Halen record? And I'm not a fan of his music. I think it's like just bubblegum rock. But let Wolfgang sing it. Van Halen record.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Let Wolfgang sing it. Let Eddie's son sing that record. You want to fix it?
It'll probably come down to that.
I would say that'd be the best thing you could do. If you can't get Gary Cherone and give him a second chance, let Wolfgang sing it and let it be it'll be Eddie, Wolfgang, and Alex basically, and that's
the DNA.
That's what Eddie always wanted anyway, because
Yeah. And his son's got a good voice.
Yeah, he does. He can sing.
Yeah.
Just I'm an old man. I don't like new music now, so I'm not a fan of Mammoth, but the kid's talented as all get out. So
Mammoth is good though.
And I watched him play the couple Van Halen songs he's played. He has come the closest I've seen to anybody ever sounding and playing like his dad, which is not surprising. But
yeah,
everybody that plays guitar or a Van Halen song never gets it quite right, but he has. So props to him. If he's listening, thanks for listening.
Thanks, Wolfie.
Yeah, call in.
Yeah.
Talk to us.
Yep. All right. Well, that'll do it for this week. Chris, anything left to say?
I don't. Later.
Shine on.
The pixel people bought. Zap, 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 it's on. Rewind the future fraud. The pixel people bought.
Nachher